Yo guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while since I've posted, but got a schedule all worked out now, so I should be back to posting videos. But I've got an absolute banger cooked up for you today. And like it says on the screen, just a reminder, follow Twitter. It'll be linked down in the description below. But like I said, I've got an absolute banger video. I've been working super hard on this video. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. But let's get right into it. Not going to waste any more time. And the topic of today's video, you could probably tell from the title or thumbnail, is we're going to be testing to see if you, the viewer, are smarter than an NFL GM. This is based off of a TikTok that I saw. Someone did something similar with the NBA, and I'll credit that video down in the description below. But basically what we're going to be doing here is I'm going to give you the situation of a team and a position that you are going to be drafting for, and I'm going to give you the blind resume of 3 players that were picked at the pick that I base this off of, or after. So all these guys were on the board, able to be drafted, and we're going to see if you could pick the best player out of the 3 choices. Do you pick the bust? Do you pick the best player? Do you pick the actual player that was drafted? That's what we're going to find out. So, would you have made the same mistakes that these GMs did? Would you have hit on the same picks that they did? That's what we're going to be finding out today. So I've got 3 rounds for you, 3 blind resumes each. So without further ado, let's get into the first round. And the first position that we're going to be testing here is the wide receiver position. And I'll just, set the stage a little bit with your pick. So, you had a disappointing season last year. And according to PFF, you had a bottom 5 passing offense in the league. So, definitely got to make some improvements. And drafting a good wide receiver is a good step towards improving that. And, this is your second pick in this draft. You use your first high overall pick to get your future quarterback already in this draft. And so now you want to pick up a weapon for this new quarterback to, maybe make a new offense moving forward and get out of that bottom 5 and, become a solid passing attack. So I'm going to have 3 players here, player A, B, and C. And you're going to have to pick which one you want to draft. So let's get started here with the first wide receiver, which is going to be player A. So you could see career stats up there, the measurable 6 foot, 190 pounds. And, player A, I'll give you a quick description of each player as well. Player A is a raw but talented, extremely talented player at the receiver position with some of the most athletic tools in the entire draft class. Most notably in his career, player A had a huge sophomore season, posting 118 receptions for 1,721 yards and 14 touchdowns for a super well-known program who didn't have the best year during his sophomore season. And, while not being a huge receiver, player A makes up for his lack of size with great speed and after the catch skills. This is evidenced by, he did kick returns for his college team and, ripped off a ton of chunk plays during his 2 or 3 seasons in college. Player A also has good contested catch abilities, but a down junior season plagued by injury and a somewhat disappointing combine have hurt his draft stock a little bit. His biggest weaknesses are definitely seen as his size, injury history, and he's had drop problems at time. However, player A is still seen as a player that should make an impact at the next level, being a solid number 2 option at least. And according to one source, which all sources will be linked in the description below, a player comparison for player A would be Greg Jennings, formerly of the Green Bay Packers. We will now move on to player B, who comes in at 6'2", 212 pounds, so is definitely bigger than player A. And, take a look at those numbers there. Absolutely massive in 2 years. Player B posted the best numbers of the entire trio here, racking up 3,031 career receiving yards and a whopping 38 touchdowns in only 2 years of playing college. With a repertoire of polished route running, solid hands, solid body control, player B projects to be a solid receiver in the NFL, but currently lacks the elite size or speed to truly, step in right away as a number 1 option in the NFL. Player B's impressive resume has improved his draft stock, and his potential has caught the eye of NFL franchises, somewhat making for the biggest blemish on his resume, which is the level of competition that he played against. Player B, may have dominated low and non-Power 5 teams, a few Power 5 teams too, but minimal tape against higher level talent is something that these teams cannot overlook. So, a player comparison for him, and all this is according to NFL draft profiling from when they're actually drafted, is Anquan Boldin, formerly of the 49ers. So, player B has a really solid repertoire of skills, but, showcase them against maybe not so great competition. So is that the risk you're willing to take? If so, maybe player B is the guy for you. And finally, we have your third option here, player C, 6'1", 195 pounds. And entering this draft, player C is definitely considered to be a high floor, low ceiling player, mainly fitting the role of the modern slot possession receiver. You know, he made minimal impact in his freshman and sophomore seasons, but in his junior season, he posted a solid 77 receptions for 1,193 yards and 10 touchdowns for a school that was consistently ranked in the top 20, and he led the team in each of those statistical categories. Player C played an extremely reliable role in his offense. You know, ran crisp routes over the middle of the field and came down with a lot of tough physical contested catches. However, player C, you know, they were contested catches for a reason. He, you know, struggled to gain a ton of separation and really lacks both elite size and speed. So he really does not project to be a true number one receiver, you know, basically at all in his career. And he also had a bad combine showing, which definitely highlighted some of those size and speed weaknesses. But what you need to remember is, you know, he was a very, very good college player at a super high level and has a pretty polished skill set. And according to a draft source, a comparison from is Andre Roberts, who is pretty trash. I'll be honest, you might not even know who that is, but you know, he plays that kind of slot receiver role, and that is what you know, player C was seen as fitting into coming into the draft. All right, so we have gone over the resumes of player A, player B, and player C. So now it's time. You can pause the video here, think about who you want to pick, go back, watch things I said, look back at the stats. But now's the time to lock in your pick. Are you taking player A, B, or C to pair with your new, hopefully franchise quarterback to try to rebuild this passing offense? So make your pick. All right, so now is officially time for the reveal, and I'll let you know right away that player A was in fact the person who I based this pick off, who was the first of the three players selected out of this, and we will reveal right now who it was. So if you went with player A, who was the actual pick in the draft, you ended up landing Marquise Lee, which is pretty disappointing. If you took player A, I apologize. This is definitely the worst option. You fell into the same trap that the Jaguars GM did at the time. You took Marquise Lee, you know, solid at USC, you know, obviously a big name school. He posted good numbers, but, you know, the injury history didn't help him, and he did not really pan out in the NFL. So Marquise Lee was the first of these three players chosen. So that's who you would have drafted if you selected player A, and which is extremely disappointing as we move on to the reveal of player B, who is in fact now on the Las Vegas Raiders, and that is the widely regarded best receiver in the NFL, Davante Adams. You know, reading off his resume, you know, didn't play at a great school, Fresno State. Now him and Derek Carr now teaming up in the NFL. But Davante Adams has been an absolute machine in the league, you know, and wasn't that, you know, highly touted coming out of college, had drop problems early in his career, but has evolved into what many consider to be the most talented and best receiver in the NFL. So you took the chance on the guy from the worst school who posted monster numbers, and you would have lucked out if you chose player B. And moving on to the reveal of player C, that actually is Jarvis Landry, which is definitely the second best option. He's better than Marquise Lee, is super solid now on the Saints. I'll be excited to see, you know, him with Chris Olave and Michael Thomas. You know, that is potentially one of the best receiving cores in the entire league now. And, you know, Jarvis has been pretty solid, you know, playing for the Browns, you know, with Baker too. You know, we can maybe see him stretch the field a little bit more, Jameis, and post some better numbers. But Jarvis has been extremely solid and consistent in his career. And if you drafted him, you know, I think he should be pretty happy with that. I think most teams would be happy to have Jarvis Landry on their team at this point. But if you ended up choosing Marquise Lee or even Jarvis Landry and you're not super pumped about it, we've got 2 more rounds where you can hit the big best player. So now let's move on to the second round. Go into the second round, and we're going to be talking about edge rushers here, which, you know, as you saw with Aiden Hutchinson and Trayvon Walker going off the board as the first 2 picks in this year's draft, and, you know, the rise of players like Myles Garrett, you see there, TJ Watt, those kinds of guys. You know, edge rushers are such an important position these days. So that is what you're going to be looking to draft here, one of the top edge rushers in the league. And I'll set the stage here for you. You know, following a mediocre season, you're looking to make a return to the playoffs, adding another key piece to your improving pass rushing unit. So, you know, you made the playoffs last year. This season, you did not make the playoffs. You're looking to make a push back into the playoffs, and by doing so, you're looking at some edge rushers here that you want to add to your team to improve your unit, which is definitely improving and is one of the top units in the league. But you want to add one more key piece to maybe push you back over the edge into the playoffs. So let me introduce you first to Player A. So Player A, you can see the measurables and stats there on the screen. And Player A burst onto the scene, posting a breakout season his sophomore year with 11.5 sacks, 63 tackles, and 15 tackles for loss after not doing much else in his freshman year. Most of those stats that I just read out basically mirror his whole career stats. So he had a big breakout sophomore season. And, he also has some skill setting the edge against rushing attacks, but he really shines, as an edge rusher. He's got good quickness and smart instincts off the line, has good bend, and an extremely high motor on defense. At the next level, Player A definitely can improve in the run game. Like I said, has some skill setting the edge and rushing attacks, but, to really, improve his game, he could get better against the run, and he'd probably broaden his pass rush move repertoire. Since he doesn't have top level speed or athleticism, he's really got to improve on his moves to be a playmaker at the next level. But he projects to be a perfect 3-4 outside linebacker, edge rusher early in his career. And he really carries sky high potential as an edge rusher, to be one of the top guys in the league, but immediately should be able to get after the quarterback and really set the tone on a defense. And a player comparison for him would be Connor Barwin, formerly of your Philadelphia Eagles. So that is Player A. So let's move on here to Player B, coming in at 6'1", 230 pounds, played a full 4 years of college. And, he played at a less talented school, definitely, than the other two players, but was a really dynamic edge rusher, despite being, extremely undersized, compared to Player A. Is 4 inches shorter, about 15 pounds lighter. And, he only got better as his college career went on, and he posted an impressive 65 tackle, 22.5 tackle for loss, 10.5 sack, 3 forced fumble stat line his senior year of college. He possesses elite speed and pursuit skills off the edge, and projects to be a 3-4 outside linebacker due to his size, as opposed to the defensive end role that he played in college. At the next level, he's going to need to improve on his instincts and gain experience at outside linebacker, since he was more of a defensive end in college, but he's not going to be able to do that and make up for his size compared to other people at the position. And so, while he's going to have to play kind of a new role at the next level, he's an impressive athlete with a lot of potential. And a player comparison for him is Patriots linebacker Jamie Collins, who also, I believe, was a defensive end in college and then kind of had to switch to be more of a outside linebacker type. So we can now move on to the final choice you have here, which is Player C, coming in at 6'3", 255. Similar to Player A, Player C enjoyed a breakout sophomore season and was a disruptive edge rusher in a high-level conference, posting 56 tackles, 18.5 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks during that campaign. And then during his junior season, he, continued to put up good numbers, which included 61 tackles, 12 tackle for losses, and 9 sacks, even while he faced more double teams and schemes around him. Player C has a great first step and quickness off the edge, and he has a really nice repertoire of pass rush moves. And, he's more of a defensive end than the other two players. So, while he still projects to be a 3-4 outside linebacker, he could also play a 4-3 defensive end, but in order to do that, he would have to improve on some of his weaknesses, which include his strength, especially in the run game, where he's susceptible to physical rushing schemes and, struggle to hold his own in those scenarios. So likely, until he improves on his strength and those kinds of things, he'll be used as an edge rusher early in his career. And a player comparison for him is Melvin Ingram, who is an extremely talented player. And, Player C, you can see the stats there, had a pretty good college career. All right, so those are the 3 blind resumes of the edge rushers that you could take here with your pick, trying to make it back to the playoffs. Who do you think is going to give you the best shot? So, trying to get back in the playoffs, maybe you go with someone who will make a bit more of an immediate impact, or since you already have a pretty good pass rushing unit, you take a guy with higher upside to improve for the future and could build into a player and, learn from the players that you've already got on your team. So who is it going to be? It's time to lock in your pick. Are you guys going to be Player A, B, or C? All right, and now it is time for the reveal, and let me introduce you to Player A. And if you picked Player A, you're going to be very happy with your selection because that is the reigning defensive player of the year, TJ Watt out of Wisconsin. Really didn't do much his freshman year, but broke out his sophomore year and has just taken off since there. Obviously won the defensive player of the year this last year, arguably the best defensive player in the NFL. Obviously there's guys like Aaron Donald, but TJ Watt, of course, going to be the best out of these three players. If you chose player A, then congratulations, you landed yourself TJ Watt. Now, if you chose player B, who was the actual selection by the Arizona Cardinals, was the team that I was, you're acting as the GMS. They took now Eagles linebacker Hassan Reddick, who, even switched from quarterback while he was playing at Temple in college. But it posted an extremely impressive 4 years. They're not the greatest program, but he's been a super solid player for the Cardinals, for the Panthers, and now for the Eagles. And as an Eagles fan, I'm excited to see what he can do. Very solid player. Obviously not on the level of TJ Watt, but someone that basically every NFL defense would like to have. Super solid. And then we will see player C, who is not probably the worst of the three players. Charles Harris of the Detroit Lions, played for Missouri, put up pretty good numbers, in the SEC, especially for a team that isn't that great in the SEC. And that's why I kind of mentioned that he faced more schemes and double teams, because the rest of their roster wasn't great. So, teams kind of focused on him his junior year, but, plays for the Detroit Lions. So not necessarily a bad player, but not great. And definitely not as good as Sam Reddick or TJ Watt. So, who did you pick? Let me know down in the comments, and we're going to move on to the third and final round of you seeing if you're smarter than an NFL GM. So here we are in the third and final round, and in this round you're going to be selecting a new cornerback for your team. Coming off a season where you barely managed to squeak out 5 wins, you're really in search for a defensive cornerstone. This is a high pick. You had a bottom 3 secondary in coverage according to PFF this season. So you're looking for that lockdown corner to add to your defense, to really start, building your team back up. Only 5 wins. You're looking to improve moving in the future, and you want a cornerback. Hopefully he doesn't bust like Nnamdi Asomugha on the Eagles. So let's move on and introduce you to player A. You can see his stats and the measurables right there on the screen. And similarly to the third overall pick in this year's draft, Derek Stingley, player A, balled out in his freshman and sophomore seasons, and then posted a slightly lackluster junior campaign. During his career, player A went toe-to-toe with some of the best receivers in the nation and played well, highlighted by a sophomore season stat line of 50 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 13 pass breakups. Player A thrives in many areas, possessing versatility and coverage with good agility and outstanding ball skills. However, player A does not have elite speed and has shown weaknesses in jump ball situations, so, may be susceptible to, the guys in the league with elite speed and size for jump balls. Despite these weaknesses, numerous NFL teams have interest in this smooth and smart cornerback, and player comparison for him is former Pro Bowl cornerback, now free agent, Joe Hayden. Moving on here to player B, coming in at 6'1", 200 pounds. You can see the stats there, and player B really has all the physical tools to be a standout player in the NFL, but he enters this draft definitely more as a project and less of a complete player than player A and player C. His impressive debut season saw him record 53 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 10 pass breakups, followed by a 33 tackle, 1 interception, 8 pass breakup sophomore season. Against pretty high-level competition, player A showed extreme potential as he possesses the size and speed to match just about any receiver in coverage. As such, he projects to be a press man corner in the NFL. But as previously mentioned, he's viewed as somewhat of a project. He has a tendency to initiate contact. He strays away from making plays in the run game, and overall just has a less polished game than the other top cornerback prospects in this draft. However, he has huge upside and some really impressive performances on his resume, so he's high on the draft radar for some teams. And the player comparison for him is Leon Hall, who are very physical, similar physically. And, like I said, the player B has super high potential and has really good physical traits. All right, and moving on to the final player of this round, player C, 6'1", 202 pounds. And, player C, enters this draft. He's pretty controversial. He's got mixed reviews from teams, especially since some teams view him more as a safety, due to his size, and he has experience playing the position in college. But his position, to me, it doesn't really matter. He was the best defensive player at a really high-level program and really showed out in his college career. During his first 2 seasons, player C played a mix of safety and corner, turning in a first-year line of 49 tackles and an interception, followed by a massive sophomore campaign of 79 tackles, 9.5 tackle for loss, 12 pass breakups, 2 picks, and 2 forced fumbles. His third season, where he switched to be a full-time cornerback, saw him have a solid but not great season. He wasn't as dynamic his sophomore year as playing safety, but was pretty solid. And, he thrives as a press man corner or, as a playmaking safety his sophomore season. His third season played like a press man corner since he has good strength, size, and instincts. Teams that have player C further down their draft board, probably think player C will struggle against fast and shifty receivers. He's kind of bigger, doesn't have elite speed, or are potentially looking for an impressive zone corner. He's definitely not the greatest in zone coverage, more of a press man player and kind of a big body run game secondary player. However, player C had a really good combine and seems to have good off the field traits. So, teams are eager to get their hands on him no matter where he's going to play. And, as a press man corner, he's drawn comparisons to Richard Sherman, Crabtree's father himself. So that is it. Player A, player B, and player C. It is now time for you to make your selection. Who are you going to be drafting here to be the cornerstone defensive back in your team coming off of a 5-win season? Who's going to build that defense up, lock down the number one receiver potentially on the other teams? Make sure you lock in your pick, and we're going to find out who you ended up drafting. All right, it is now time for the reveal, and player A is in fact Vernon Hargreaves. Played for the Buccaneers, played for the Texans. He's kind of bounced around the league in his first few years. Has never really lived up to his potential. I believe he was the 18th pick, so high overall pick here. Hasn't really lived up to it. Bounced around, and probably isn't even going to be a starter in the league this year, despite being drafted not that many years ago. So if you chose Vernon Hargreaves, that is probably the worst of the three. Has not really panned out in the league. Now, player B is a little bit before I show him on the screen. I'm just gonna say he's definitely controversial, but I think he's better definitely than Vernon Hargreaves. But some people think that he is absolutely awful. But player B is in fact Eli Apple. Obviously, he was talking trash during the playoffs this year and got worked by Cooper Kupp in the Super Bowl. And I think just about any corner would have got worked by Cooper Kupp in the Super Bowl. But, Eli Apple's been pretty solid. He's been a starter for basically every year of his career. And, I don't think you'd be too upset with drafting him. Definitely not ecstatic about it, but he's been pretty solid in his career. However, player A and player B are nowhere close to the player who's actually selected in this position, and that is Jalen Ramsey. So the Jaguars, unlike the first, so I've modeled after the Jaguars for round one, was the Jaguars taking Marquise Lee, where they took the worst of the three players that they could have. But in this round, they took the best of the three players. They took Jalen Ramsey as the first of these guys off the board. And, despite coming out as maybe potentially a safety corner hybrid, he's turned into the best cornerback in the NFL. So congratulations if you land yourself Jalen Ramsey, now Super Bowl champion Jalen Ramsey. And that is it. Those are all the 3 rounds. Thank you for watching. Spent a lot of time on this video, so if you could drop a comment and let me know your thoughts, let me know how I can improve it, let me know. And I'm going to be trying to post video every single weekend, so subscribe to stay tuned, follow me on Twitter to keep updated with the videos I'm making. This was more of a fun video. I might try to get more analytical video out next week, and I definitely want to drop a part 2 to this video soon. I thought it was an interesting kind of experiment to look back at some prospects, see what the scouting was on players who did pan out, who didn't, what the situations were of a team and who they drafted and why. So I think I'll do a part 2 to this video soon, but thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.